What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Tap. If you've never joined us before, my name is Michael, and this is John, the guy with the bad haircut. How are you doing today, John?
Apparently, getting dragged every episode lately. I need a haircut. I
didn't comment about the zit today. I didn't comment about the big ass zit you have on your forehead.
Until this very second. No, it's it's a rough day. Stress is a thing, so
well, that's why you're here, man. That's why you're here. That's why it's called the Fantasy Tap. You crack a cold one and you hang out. That's what we do. We talk fantasy football. Not cute mug.
I got a homemade Moscow Mule. Just I'm out of actual drinks. I didn't want to go anywhere, so I looked around. I was like, oh, I got some ginger beer and some Tito's.
There you go. Yeah, I'm jealous right now. I'm jealous. Not of the hair, but definitely of the drink.
Come on over.
I'm not actually. I need a haircut. I'm not even gonna lie. Look at me. I look like I don't know. I look like Credence from freaking the Harry Potter thing.
My problem is my girlfriend accidentally left with my debit card. My barber only takes cash, and I'm not someone that holds cash a lot, so we're waiting until Friday.
Well, if you need cash, John, you know where I live. A couple streets over. No. Come get it. I'll help you out. And you can Venmo me or something. But enough of that. We're here to talk fantasy football. All right.
Episode of the week, the must starts and the must sits, the guys that make or break our Saturdays, our Sundays, and our Mondays.
Yes. And we're also going to talk Thursday night football. We got the Thursday night football breakdown to include in this episode, make it more convenient for you guys. Before we jump into that, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast via YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasting. And then also, if you could do us a favor, like this video and give us a rate and a review. 5 stars would be preferable on anywhere you listen to podcasts. That would be amazing. Also, lastly, before we go, Discord, the link is in the bio description. So check that out. Join that. Ton of cool people that talk fantasy football 24/7.
Honestly, and I just actually had someone I was speaking to a little bit earlier before we recorded this podcast. A friend called me in a group call with another one of their friends who's new to fantasy football. He got a trade request, and he was, they just wanted my opinion really fast while I was doing some dishes. Honestly, after I gave him my advice, the best thing I told him was honestly just join the Discord chat. There's a group of people in there that if you have little questions, or you're just looking for some reassurance or anything like that, you've got 15, 20 people plus that'll actually look at that and see if what they think. You'll get some different opinions, and then it's a great place to learn what to look for in fantasy football.
Yes.
So if you're newer, don't be afraid. It's not just a high-end, super fantasy loving community. It's a group of people that enjoy the fantasy sport.
Yes.
So don't be overwhelmed.
100%. So, John, you want to start with our start sits and streams?
Let's start with the start sits. Because I think you've got someone in here that's in the Thursday night. So let's not give them away too early because they'll probably come up a little bit later. But I'm actually going to start a little risky here. Maybe not after what we saw in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers defense. But I'm going Jameis Winston. Obviously, last week on only 20 attempts, finished as a top 12 quarterback, looked like an absolute monster on those 5 touchdown passes. And rolling into the week, going up against a pretty weak Carolina defense, I'm extremely excited to throw him in nearly over most quarterbacks this week. Obviously, Tom Brady's not on our must-start list because he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, playing against one of the worst defenses in the league. Quarterback 1 on the week. Now, Jameis Winston, though, possibility of a quarterback 5. But I do definitely see a quarterback 1 finish for him this week, especially against that weak defense, and it'll be a great game.
Yeah, I love Jameis this week. I'll actually talk about him a little bit later. My quarterback start of the week might be cherry picking, but he's coming off possibly the worst game of his career. Went 28 attempts, completed 15 of them for 133 yards and 2 interceptions. Not typical of our old boy Aaron Rodgers. I think he has a great bounce back week. Gets to beat up on the Detroit Lions. Yes, they did pretty well against the San Francisco 49ers. Made it a game there at the end. And I mean, neither quarterback, neither Trey Lance nor Jimmy Garoppolo had much fantasy relevance at all. They did hold Jimmy Garoppolo did throw 314 yards and a touchdown, but also had a fumble. So I think that this is a bounce back week for the entire Green Bay offense. I'm actually really excited for it. And it's a division rival who they know quite well.
I like it a lot. Definitely still picking apart that Detroit defense. I see you're not a big fan of them going into this season, and I obviously don't blame you too much. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a huge, huge asset this week. And if you're falling off and tilting over him, calm down a little bit. Great week to play him. I'm actually going to bring you my running back up next. And again, I'm going to say Melvin Gordon. A shock to a lot of people. I'm not saying you start him over Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not saying you start him over Derrick Henry or even a Joe Mixon at this point. I do think, though, that Melvin Gordon, if he's there for you and you don't have obvious must-start running backs, and he's sitting on your bench, you need to throw him in at least the flex position, going up against a really, really very, very weak Jacksonville defense. Last week was allowed the third most fantasy points to the running backs, and it might not come off too strongly because none of those running backs finish with exceptional, standalone finishes. But as a group, the Houston running back team put up a total of 36.4 points. Even if Javonte Williams does see a share of that run, you'll be fine. Melvin Gordon's going to be an absolute stud. He did have that 70-yard touchdown, prove it play, telling the coaches, hey, I'm still me. It only takes a little bit. Even got some praise from Teddy Bridgewater last year or after the game where he reminded him he played with Adrian Peterson, a running back that would go for 3 yards, for 4 yards, for 3 yards, for 2 yards, and then break it for 60. And that guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
All right. Well, you're saying Melvin Gordon's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I'm saying that Melvin Gordon's a great week 2 fantasy play.
All right. Well, I am going to get over to my running back, and that is going to be Kareem Hunt. He's playing Houston, and Houston did pretty well against the running backs there in Jacksonville last week, but that was Jacksonville. It's not the high-powered or rushing attack that the Cleveland Browns are. Got a great offensive line and no OBJ. So I think that they're going to, use Kareem in the passing game quite well this week. I'm excited for it, and they might get out to a lead. And if they do, they'll just run the ball, and Kareem's going to be a part of that. Last year, I believe, last year they played Houston, new team-ish, and Kareem went 19 carries for 104 yards, 4 targets, 3 catches, 28 yards off of those. And Nick Chubb also had 19 carries that game. So I do think it's going to be a pretty fantasy relevant game for Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, of course, as expected, but quite excited for it.
I remember that game last year. That was when they had that huge wind/rainstorm. The game got delayed for like hours, and the wind, I want to say they had like 30-mile-per-hour winds at ground level.
Yep.
Yeah, they all balled out that game. It was a beautiful week. I definitely like that a lot. I think Kareem Hunt's someone that sees a lot of pass catching work and is usable on a weekly basis, especially at a flex. So you're telling me must start. I'll throw him in that running back too, just because of you.
Thank you.
My next guy on the board actually is going to be Mike Williams. He is going to be playing against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, as Mike pointed out in our Tilt or Not to Tilt episode yesterday, Trayvon Diggs was covering Mike Evans last week, shut down Mike Evans, and is looking like Cowboys' best secondary player. There is reason to believe that we will see Trayvon shadowing Keenan Allen for a majority of the game this week, leaving Mike Evans to sit there and be the recipient of the big arm that Justin Herbert has. Now, if Dallas continues to play the same way that they are playing and just airing the ball out, moving the ball downfield, and just trying to have so much offense, defense doesn't matter, then Justin Herbert's the player. that's going to respond. We're going to see another 300-yard day, and we see a lot of opportunity for Mike Evans to have those giant plays and those Mike Williams to have those giant plays and big
You've been
touchdown
saying it the whole
opportunities.
time.
Sorry.
It's all right,
but Mike Williams must start wide receiver, especially as a wide receiver 2 on your team. If you have him and you've got amazing talent around him, find a way to get him into that flex position.
All right. Well, I have a little trend here. All right. It's bounce back week, baby. The Packers lost. They're going to bounce back. The Browns lost. They're going to bounce back with Kareem Hunt. The Titans looked in shambles. And I said on our to tilt or not to tilt episode, I am close to tilting on Julio Jones. However, I am not tilting this week. I am starting him. He is my must start. He is going up against the Seattle Seahawks. We saw Zach Pascal get in the end zone twice. Not saying that that's in Julio's cards, but they give up touchdowns. It was a good game. And they, Julio was targeted last week 6 times. I like it. I think the Titans, if they're going to get it back in going, which Mike Vrabel's a great coach, I think he will this week. It's going to start this week, and Julio Jones is going to be the benefactor of that, along with A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, of course. But I think this week is going to be a solid performance from Julio Jones. Julio, I'm not scared to start you. You're my must start.
All right. I like it. I'm going to be honest. He was almost on my list, but I ended up going with Mike Williams instead. But definitely like the play of Julio Jones. Great bounce back week. Moving over to the tight end, though, I'm actually going to say that you should definitely start Logan Thomas this week. Stealing Mike's guy. Going up against the New York Giants last week, playing against Noah Fant and Albert O himself getting that touchdown, but gave up 24 points to the tight end. Obviously, Washington does not have a plethora of available receivers, especially with Curtis Samuel not available at the moment. Now, Logan Thomas is that number 2 wide receiver on that team at the moment, or the number 2 receiving option on that team at the moment. And I think that going against New York, he's going to have an exceptional day, finding that red zone again this week, back-to-back weeks in the red zone.
All right. Love it. I love Logan Thomas. All right. My tight end is Noah Fant, baby. Going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars here in sunny Florida. Okay. He's going to be sipping margaritas. He might even take a dip in the pool at the stadium before the game. And then he's going to catch a touchdown. Listen, Pharaoh Brown went for 67 yards on this team last week. Who's Pharaoh Brown? He is the tight end from Houston. Okay. He had 5 targets, 4 catches, 67 yards. Noah Fant with no Jerry Jeudy. He's getting in the end zone and he's going to put up 70 yards, baby.
Ooh.
Yes, sir. Love that.
All right. Let's jump over to the must-sit players very quickly. And I'm going to start it off with something that's going to get me thrown under some buses here. I'm going to say that you sit Jalen Hurts this week. Now, last week, we saw Jalen Hurts have an absolutely amazing debut in the 2021 season. We saw him go up against the worst.
But John, he was Michael's best. He was Michael's must start last week.
Yeah, going up against the Falcons, you're going to be starting pretty much every quarterback against them this year. They are a team to be targeting. Now, it's not to say that Jalen Hurts isn't a talented player and isn't a good quarterback. The problem for me is the fact that he's going up against the 49ers in that defense. We saw last week, though the 49ers finished as the fourth best team to play a quarterback against due to the fact that Jared Goff had such a blow up in garbage time and was able to throw up 336 yards against them. That does not mean that in a competitive game that they aren't going to be able to shut down Jalen Hurts this week, Devontae Smith this week, with that defense in a completely different matchup. When you're talking about a terrible defense and a great defense, game scripts flip instantly. We may not have the opportunity for Jalen Hurts to be throwing the ball as much as he had, and those touchdowns just might not be there for him. I'm not comfortably playing Jalen Hurts this week in any situation. I love San Francisco's defense, and it was obviously a week 1 fluke.
All right. Well, I am going to target, Tyrod Taylor, but Tyrod Taylor, you are my must-sit quarterback of the week. Listen, we've seen it in 2017, 2018. He put up almost 30-point games both times, and guess what happened the next week? He came back with the dud. And unfortunately, it happens. He's also not going to be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. He's going to be playing the daggone Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. I think it's going to be a rough day for him and that entire Houston team. It's going to be they're going to get punched in the mouth. I don't think they're going to respond either. So unfortunately, Tyrod Taylor, you're sitting on my bench.
Hey, we're talking about a possibility of a revenge game. Tyrod Taylor's first game up against the Cleveland Browns since leaving. We're looking at what could be an amazing game. I'm not going to sit him, but I'm also probably not playing him unless I have no other quarterback because you didn't draft him. If you made the chance, you possibly picked him up off your waiver wire, but I think he finishes as a playable guy this week, but that's about it.
Okay.
Moving on, though, my running back sit of the week is going to be Mike Davis. Again, going up against a stout defense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We saw them shut down Ezekiel Elliott last week, getting Tony Pollard involved just as much in that against the Cowboys. So let's see what happens when Mike Davis actually goes against a real team after just underperforming last week going against the Eagles. It is an absolute situation where if you drafted him as your RB2, you are looking to see what kind of streaming options you have, what kind of other players you drafted and might be usable in week 2.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I understand why you're doing it. My sit of the week, baby. Let's go. Saquon Barkley going up against the Washington football team. Couple things. And here it is. Joe Judge and the Giants came out and said that they're not going to quote unquote unleash Saquon Barkley in week 2. It's been a short week for them. They're playing on Thursday night. So typically I don't like playing players on Thursday night anyway, because it's a short week, a lot of them aren't fully rested. And this guy coming off of, the ACL and things like that. It's a short week. He didn't get too much playing time last week. He only had 13 attempts. And I'm sorry, but I'm not playing him. Obviously, if you're in a situation where you've got to play him, you're going to play him. But hopefully you're not. Hopefully you can find two guys to play over him in that running back spot. So Saquon Barkley, I'm sitting you on the bench. I think he does something similar. He might put up 8 to 10 points, maybe 10 if he's lucky, but and maybe sneaks in the end zone. But I mean, he only averaged 2.6 yards a carry last week. And he's playing a similarly good-ish defensive line and defense in general. So
obviously I'm going to agree with you. He's a must-sit this week. Everything that you're just telling me is saying that, hey, he's not going to have a lot of opportunity. They're not going to force him the ball this week. He's coming off those injuries. He's averaged 2 yards per carry, including his last season's carries, even though it was only the game and a half. Obviously, you're not playing him this week. But what's crazy is we told you not to play him last week, and 80% of players still had him in their starting lineup last week.
you have to.
I mean, you don't, though. This is a situation where you aren't just – this is where – fantasy players and people that play fantasy come in. If you're realistically following fantasy football and football in general, you have to understand there are weeks where these guys that you drafted just do not need to be in your lineup. Just because they are going to finish the season as a top 12 doesn't mean that in week, let's say 10, because of a knee injury and then they're banged up and we're getting told that they're not going to get a lot of work, you have to throw them in your lineup. You do not. You are still just looking for the most points available on your bench and on your roster. And Saquon Barkley is not going to be filling that in week 2. Doesn't mean that you need to be dropping them or not playing them or not touching them whatsoever or taking deep shots to make sure he's not being played. But if you have anything reasonable, you're still putting him on the bench. My wide
i.e.
receiver,
Myles Gaskin,
I would take Myles Gaskin over him. Absolutely.
just to give him something.
Yeah. My wide receiver bench of the week, make sure he's sitting for you. We don't like what we saw. But that's going to be Robbie Anderson, especially going up against the Saints defense this week. Last week, we saw 3 huge targets to the man. And luckily, one of them happened to pay off for a 57-yard touchdown. But realistically, you are not taking those shots. You are not forcing yourself into a situation where you're going to be playing a guy that only got 3 targets against the Jets. You're not looking for him to be a consistent player. New Orleans looked like they just shut down one of the best offenses in football right now.
Yeah.
Realistically, you don't want to have a situation where you're playing Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold against a guy that against the defense that just shut down Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, especially the second receiver on the team, possibly even the third receiver if you go off total targets. So make sure you're not playing Robbie. Don't take the shot on him. Find another guy, flex them in, fill that wide receiver 2 spot.
There you go. My wide receiver sit of the week is Michael Pittman. He only had 4 targets last week, and the LA Rams kept Allen Robinson, Marquise Goodwin, and Darnell Mooney all under 10 points. That's not good. That is not good. Allen Robinson only caught his, which is a top 10, top 12 wide receiver in the league, fantasy-wise and reality, I would say. Kept him to 35 yards. 11 targets, caught 6 of them, 35 yards. Crazy. I'm not starting Michael Pittman. I'm not starting that past any of those wide receivers. I know Zach Pascal was one of those guys you picked up off the waiver wire. I'm not playing him either, but Michael Pittman, I know he has a lot of hype around him. He is going to be sitting on my bench.
So going over to my tight end sit of the week, I'm actually going to say it again. Sit Mark Andrews, especially going up against Kansas City this week. We just watched the Ravens get into what should have been a shootout. Lamar Jackson throwing the ball 30 times. Game went into overtime. Mark Andrews still only got 5 targets. That is 16%. But 16% of 30 is still only 5 targets in a must-win shootout game where he is trying his best to score. He is not the Mark Andrews that we thought he was back in 2019 where he got those 10 touchdowns. They will come. But going up against Kansas City this week, I'm not taking the risk to be throwing him in there. There are better tight end options on the waivers. Guys that went undrafted last week or during this draft could have a better opportunity than him this week. Again, he is purely only if a touchdown happens to fall into his hands, he was a solid play. If not, you busted at the position completely.
All right. Well, that is interesting. That's a hard one for me because I know they have a tough matchup, but if you most people drafted him to be that tight end, and obviously if they listen to the show, they wouldn't have, but that's rough. That's hard because they did spend high draft capital on it. But like John said earlier, you got to play the players that are going to put up points. Let's go over to my tight end. That's Mike Gesicki. I'm sitting him this week, playing against Buffalo. Not only that, they're pretty solid defense there. So I would say, held the Pittsburgh, and I know it wasn't a blow up game or anything like that, but held Pittsburgh to 4 total targets to their tight ends. So yeah, says something there. But and I know Mike Gesicki is a great athlete, great tight end overall. However, he's got Will Fuller coming back this week. You've got the healthy Devontae Parker. Preston Williams is healthy. You've got the Waddle, Jakeem Grant, all those guys, Albert Wilson. Everybody's there, Matt Collins. So it's going to be a pretty packed week. And Durham Smythe, we even saw Durham Smythe get more work than Mike Gesicki this week. So unfortunately there's too many mouths to feed in that offense, and I don't think he will be fed in this offense this week.
It's fair. Absolutely fair. So let's jump into those streams. If there haven't been any huge injuries so far outside of Raheem Mostert since week 1, that's going to be really throwing your rosters. So if you're in a situation where you need to stream, someone really underperformed for you last week, and someone that could have performed very well for you last week and realistically again this week is going to be quarterback Teddy Bridgewater going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, only owned in 9.4% of leagues. We saw him last week looking like an absolute stud, in my opinion. Now, he will be losing Jerry Jeudy for possibly up to 6 weeks currently, but still able to throw the ball for 260 yards, as well as for 2 touchdowns. KJ Hamler is a big play receiver. Mike, very hot on KJ Hamler. Just going to say that there. With that big play receiver means that big chunk yards can come and big touchdowns can come. Going up against one of possibly the worst defenses in the league right now, someone that you should possibly be targeting to play against if you're making your matchups. I think that Teddy's going to be an absolute stud and very, very likely to finish as a high end 2, if not a low end 1.
All right. I like that one. I do like that. Mine. So John has him as his start of the week. And I originally wasn't going to do this because he has him on his list already. But at the end of the day, our goal is not to, have different people out there for you. Our goal is to give you the right information. And Jameis Winston is the right information. He's only owned in 45% of leagues. Jameis Winston is my streaming quarterback of the week. I'm going and finding him. On those waiver wires. I think John said it all enough earlier. But I think he's got a great matchup. I think he's going to actually, in our picks and parlays episode, you'll hear me taking a prop bet on him. So go check that out. But Jameis Winston, I think he's going to finish as a low end quarterback 1 with a high end quarterback 1 upside. Of course, we've seen it. So.
Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and lie to anyone. I agree with you. There's nothing about it there. So my running back on the week is going to be James White. Pick him up if you're in these 50% of leagues where he is available. We'll be going up against the Jets this week. After the nasty fumble by Ramondre last week, James White came right back in and started getting all the receiving targets out of the backfield for the New England Patriots. Got 7 targets, looked very good, and even got a little bit of rushing work. This week, going against the Jets, though, it is just easy pickings. We're talking about a situation where we could see James White just happen to break one of these big yards on top of just getting some consistent work at that receiving back for them. Now, I do think James White is a solid flex pick or someone if you just need to fill the spot for week 2.
Yeah, I agree. I do think he is definitely going to be usable. Especially if you're in any form of PPR league. He is a solid filler. Definitely. So my running back stream of the week, he's only owned in 47.5% of leagues. He's been on the team for less than a week, and he still had the most carries on the team. Okay, outside of Lamar, I believe. Outside of Lamar, he had the most carries on the week. He had 10 carries. That's Latavius Murray. How are you going to pick somebody up, sign them, okay, and then 3 days later, they're going to be they're going to lead the backfield in touches. That just blows my mind. Got in the end zone, saved his week. He wasn't very efficient, but I think it's going to be a timeshare there. But if I need to stream a quarterback, this is the team I want my running back to be on. I want it to be on a high rushing attack. Latavius Murray is on the Baltimore Ravens, and I like that. So I know it's not the sexiest pick, but give me the volume. That's the goal when you're streaming running backs, to find somebody who's going to give you as much volume as possible.
I think you're right there. That is what you're looking for, especially when you're streaming. Just some sort of guaranteed points or some sort of security in those points, and someone that I think might be falling off people's radars but will definitely give you some guaranteed points this week. It's going to be Darnell Mooney lining up against the Bengals this week. We did see last week that the Bengals allowed the Vikings to air the ball amongst all of their receivers. Even KJ Osborne getting 9 targets last week and 7 catches. Justin Jefferson getting his 9 targets, and then Adam Thielen just balling out. I think that it's going to be a completely different week from the Bears that we saw last week. Obviously, against the Rams, they were pretty shut down. Allen Robinson in for a huge day, and I think Darnell Mooney is someone that has the same opportunity as Allen Robinson. It just happens to be which one is open on the plays that they're taking it deep and taking those shots. So I'm happily slating Darnell Mooney into all of my rosters where I am holding him right now, as he did sit the bench for me last week, letting you know he is making that change.
I love it. I love it. I actually, oh crap, who did I start Darnell Mooney over? I'll have to look. I'll have to look and see who it was and bring it up on the next episode. But I put Darnell Mooney in, and we always fill out a list of who that we both have to see who our streams of the week, or we'll send them to them. And sometimes one will do it before the other to get their favorite guys. And Darnell Mooney would have been mine for sure, because I like his matchup this week. I think that he's going to have a very, very solid week. So I like that pick. But I had to revert to KJ Hamler. Listen, he's only owned in 2.6% of leagues, and people are blowing up about Tim Patrick being Jerry Jeudy's replacement. In all reality, and I talked about it. What episode was that? Oh, that was To Tilt or Not to Tilt, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe
took KJ Hamler. No, it was the waivers.
No, it was the waiver wire show this week. I talked about it. I think that KJ Hamler is actually going to step into that role. I know Tim Patrick had a great day and whatnot, but KJ Hamler has showed flashes through the preseason. He showed flashes last year. I think, and Tim Patrick's been there for a while, and I like that and everything, but I think KJ Hamler really steps into being that playmaker for that team. Big play guy. They want to get the ball into his hands, and I think he's going to benefit the most from Jerry Jeudy being out. They already have Cortland Sutton there. So I like KJ Hamler this week as a streaming tight end going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's going to be a nice Teddy Two Gloves at KJ Hamler. Nice connection there.
I like it. I'm gonna say I like it a lot. Teddy even had his locker, or had KJ Hamler's locker moved next to him, and has been mentoring him as per KJ Hamler. So we'll see if that connection is actually building. I think you're going to be right there. Now, a very low % owned tight end that you might be able to grab if you are someone that is just fading away from someone that you've already drafted. That's going to be Juwan Johnson, coming out of New Orleans Saints, playing against the Carolina Panthers and pairing up with Jameis Winston. He's only owned in 9.6% of leagues right now. Definitely someone you should be able to get your hands on. This is a boomer bust play. If you're streaming a tight end, you're taking a shot in the dark anyways. The tight end position is as boomer bust as they come. And Juwan Johnson last week with those 2 touchdowns on those 3 catches showed good promise. Hopefully we see Jameis Winston throw more than 20 passes this week, and that situation could be completely different. Juwan Johnson could move into a very, very solid role. And I think this week against Carolina, he does have that red zone upside again with those receivers in New Orleans being kind of shady.
Yeah, definitely. He could. I know, I like his matchup. I like his quarterback. So could definitely happen for him. Jared Cook is mine, 36.3% owned. He had 8 this is what I like about him. 8 targets there against a solid defense in Washington. We just saw the tight end, and I know it's Rob Gronkowski, and I know it's Tom Brady, but Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski hooked up to make Gronkowski the tight end 1 on the week. Got in the end zone a couple times. So I like, with his target share, with Trayvon Diggs being on the field and potentially taking or limiting one of the other receivers, there's got to be a mismatch. And yes, he's 34 years old, but it's going to be Jared Cook. He's going to be involved. He's going to get his targets, and he does have touchdown upside. Big body guy. So love Jared Cook this week.
There you go. So that's going to be all of our starts, sits, and streams. I like Jared Cook a lot as well. Mike, is there anyone that you're the most excited for on your streams list that you think is nearly a must start besides Jameis Winston, of course?
I think KJ Hamler. I think he's near that. Also, I do have a defense. I have a defense.
Oh,
I
I
just
forgot
want
our
to say
defenses. I am sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's the Saints defense. I have them playing against Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers, owned in 54.1% of leagues. They just shut out, or had a very solid game against Aaron Rodgers. And I know that was the watered down Jeopardy version of Aaron Rodgers. But he can't be any better or worse, I guess, than Sam Darnold. So, I like that this week. I like that pickup.
Yeah, I think that's a solid play if you got him. I think that you're looking at possibly one of the dark horse defenses of the year. I mean, shutting down Green Bay completely is something to take note of. So we'll have to see what happens there.
And they have, sorry, real quick, and they have New England, New York Giants, and Washington coming up the following 3 weeks, which I think will be very usable weeks. And they go on their bye, so you might have to drop them at that point. But I think those will be some usable weeks. Rookie quarterback Daniel Jones, who loves to turn the ball over, and a wet behind the ears Taylor Heineke.
There you go. I think that you should be playing Green Bay's defense. Last week, obviously, got demolished and destroyed by Jameis Winston. But going up against the Detroit Lions, and me saying that I don't expect it to turn into a huge Jared Goff garbage time situation there. I think that Green Bay's defense is going to be primed to get some turnovers, keep it a medium scoring game, not too high scoring, and Aaron Rodgers is going to come out with that victory. Detroit not able to do much against them. I'm excited to play them, and they're only owned in 22% of leagues right now. So if you are in the need to stream, they are available for you.
Very nice. Very nice. So let's jump over to our Thursday night preview before we get out of here. John, it's a barn burner. The New York Giants versus the Washington football team. I think I'll be asleep by halftime.
We got spoiled last weekend.
Yeah, we did.
Or last week.
As far as the quarterbacks, I'm not playing either of these guys. If I had to choose between one or the other, I'm going Taylor Heineke, just because of his upside. We saw him have a very solid game against the playoff Buccaneers last year. So I would take the shot on him. How do you feel about this quarterback, Sean?
I think both of them finishes mid to low end quarterback 2s, quarterback 3s. Not looking at huge games from either of them. But I do think that Taylor Heineke could have a big one. If I was going to take a shot on him, I'm agreeing with you. Over in the running backs, though, again, I'm not touching Saquon Barkley. Must sit. Agree with you there. Antonio Gibson, on the other hand, obviously you're playing him. You drafted him as an RB1 or an RB2. He hasn't shown anything to make you say that he's not going to be able to produce those numbers. So no reason to take him out. But yeah, I am concerned. Obviously, those Thursday night games, a little bit slower. Obviously, got a lot of hype of that Christian McCaffrey-esque guy for Ron Rivera in Washington, and so far, I don't think we're seeing that.
Yeah, but and he was a full participant in practice with that shoulder bruise or a little shoulder injury, so he's good to go on Thursday. I agree. Definitely starting Antonio Gibson. But as far as Saquon Barkley, like I said, he's my must sit. Don't be stupid though. I'm sorry. Don't go play like even I wouldn't play Latavius Murray over Saquon Barkley.
Leonard Fournette or Saquon Barkley? Yeah. That question in itself lets you know that the only reason you're even hesitating right now is because you know what could happen for Saquon. Yeah. But with those limited carries, it's so unlikely.
Yeah. Yeah. Now jump over to the the wide receivers. I'm not playing the only wide receiver I would consider playing on the Giant side would be Sterling Shepard, just because he got those 9 targets. Kenny Golladay, I'm sorry, but he's on my bench in any league I own him. He's on my bench. And I'm not really intrigued by Darius Slayton or Kadarius Toney or anybody like that.
Yeah, I'm not interested in any of the Giants receivers. Even though Sterling Shepard had that huge game last week, I'm still waiting to see what that offense actually does on a week-to-week basis. It's only been week 1, not a lot of data to go off of. And then in Washington, you're obviously playing Terry McLaurin. He's the only stud out there. I know you were pretty hot on Adam Humphries coming into last week. A lot of other people hot on De'Ami Brown. Are you still feeling Adam Humphries?
No, so the only reason why I was really hot on Adam Humphries was because of the Fitzpatrick-Adam Humphries connection. Remember, they played back in Tampa together. So That was my only reasoning behind that. Now that there is no Ryan Fitzpatrick, there is no Adam Humphries. Terry McLaurin is the only one I would be willing to play.
Fair enough. And then obviously we're both starting Logan Thomas this week. Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph, though, I'm saying absolutely no reason to put them in.
No, and I believe, Evan Ingram is not going to be played in Thursday night's game. So he has a calf injury.
You know what? Throw Sterling Shepard in as that weak flex option for you.
All right.
Changing my mind if that's the case.
There you go. Darius Slayton did have 7 targets last week. I mean, but he is a big boomer bust guy. He's a big boomer bust guy. He's
a big play receiver. Then Daniel Jones is in a big play quarterback.
Yeah, there you go. So, any defense? Are you interested in any of these defenses?
Washington's defense, if I've got them, they're playing. If obviously I'm not streaming New York's defense against Washington's offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. So, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also, share it with a friend. We'd really appreciate it. Lastly, the Discord link is in the description. John, you want to say anything before we get out of here?
Just make sure you guys go back and check out the weekly waiver wire pickups. Even if you missed them, there's some possibilities that some of those players are available for you. Go back and check out the tilt or not to tilt. Make sure you guys are setting your rosters with the right mindset, not just going off of week 1 performances, understanding what's going on and what situations are. Be ready for week 2. This is when it really starts coming together. We start seeing what teams are really going to be doing. So make sure you guys are paying attention, and then stay on the lookout for our weekend breakdown where we go game by game, because you're going to want to know what all these other guys are going to be doing and which ones we are making sure we're getting into those lineups.
Yep. All right, baby. We'll see you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Love you.